Imagine waking up every day knowing that a huge chunk of the money your country earns isn't going to schools, hospitals, or roads, but straight into the pockets of lenders. Sounds like a scary dystopia. But for the UK, this is no fiction. In 2023-24, the government spent over £108 billion just on interest payments for national debt. That's more than the entire budgets for transport, defense, or policing. It's a bill that no one sees, yet it touches everything. You might be asking, why should this matter to me? Well, if more money goes towards debt interest, there's less for the services we rely on daily. GP visits, bus routes, school programs, even public housing. And it's not just a distant problem. Rising interest rates are turning this invisible bill into a very visible squeeze on public life. Let's step back for a moment. The UK, like many countries, borrows money to fund government spending. Borrowing isn't inherently bad. It's how countries handle big projects, recessions, or emergencies. But borrowing comes with strings attached. When debt grows and interest rates rise, the cost of that borrowing balloons. And unlike your personal bank account, the government doesn't have unlimited options. It has to prioritize, pay lenders, or fund public services. So, what's driving these rising interest payments? A few things. First, the Bank of England has been raising interest rates to control inflation, which hit a 40-year high in 2023. Higher rates mean new borrowing costs more, and even old debt can get refinanced at higher rates. Second, the UK's debt is already high, over 100% of GDP. Think of it as a credit card with a huge balance. Even small rate hikes can send interest costs through the roof. The Treasury is in the eye of the storm. They have to balance the books, keep debt sustainable, and fund services. Every £1 spent on debt interest is £1 not spent on frontline services. Schools may see frozen budgets, councils might cut local projects, and healthcare could face tough decisions. It's a delicate act, and one misstep could trigger bigger economic pain. On the international stage, institutions like the IMF keep a watchful eye. They warn governments when debt levels get risky, suggesting measures like spending cuts or tax increases. But these moves are politically charged. Nobody wants to cut programs that people depend on. Meanwhile, lenders around the world quietly profit from the rising interest, and the government's options shrink. Everyday examples show the impact. Some councils have postponed road repairs because budgets are tight. NHS trusts struggle to hire staff because funding hasn't kept up with rising costs. Even universities feel it with potential tuition hikes or cutbacks in programs. This invisible bill is reshaping what the UK can and cannot afford. It's not all doom and gloom. Some argue that if the government invests wisely, borrowing now could fund infrastructure or green energy projects that pay off long-term. But with interest costs rising, there's less flexibility for ambitious plans. Timing, execution, and economic stability will determine whether this borrowing becomes a growth story or a heavy burden. Looking ahead, the picture for the UK's public finances is uncertain and, frankly, a little worrying. Interest rates aren't just numbers. They dictate how much the government has to pay on its borrowing. If rates stay high, or worse, continue to rise, the amount the government pays in debt interest could consume an even larger share of the budget. To put it in perspective, imagine that every year, billions that could have gone to hospitals, schools, or roads instead vanish as interest payments. That's not a hypothetical scenario. It's happening now, and the consequences ripple through everyday life. For you and me, it's about tangible choices. Longer waits at the doctor's office, fewer resources in schools, delayed transport projects, or cuts to local council services are all real-world effects of a government forced to prioritize debt over people. Even programs we take for granted, like library services, community centers, or public safety initiatives, might see budget squeezes. These are not abstract numbers on a spreadsheet. They are the fabric of our daily lives, quietly shaped by decisions made in London and reflected in our towns and cities. Yet, amid these challenges, there is room for hope and solutions. Smart fiscal management, careful borrowing, and targeted investment can help the UK navigate these choppy waters. The government could focus on projects that not only stimulate growth but also pay off over time, like infrastructure, green energy, or technology initiatives. Doing so requires balance. Borrowing enough to fund growth, but not so much that interest payments spiral out of control. Timing, planning, and economic foresight are crucial. Citizens also have a role to play. Understanding where government money goes, asking critical questions, Voting with awareness and holding policymakers accountable can influence the choices made at the top. Public engagement matters because, at the end of the day, government budgets reflect collective priorities. If we demand that public spending is transparent and sustainable, policymakers have an incentive to make better decisions. The personal impact of rising debt interest can't be overstated. Even if you're not paying the government's interest directly, you feel its effects in many ways. Overcrowded hospitals, underfunded schools, patchy roads, or public transport delays are direct results of squeezed budgets. Future taxes could also rise as the government tries to cover growing interest payments. Essentially, the invisible bill shapes the environment you live in, the services you rely on, and the opportunities available to you and future generations. The invisible bill might never land on your doorstep, yet its fingerprints are everywhere. Every postponed road repair, every extended waiting list at hospitals, every school program that doesn't get funded is a symptom of this quiet crisis. It's a delicate balancing act. The government must keep lenders happy while still serving citizens. Unlike a business or a household, the government can't just stop borrowing. But every borrowing decision has consequences. The tension between debt obligations and public services will define the UK's fiscal health in the coming years. Looking further ahead, there are both risks and opportunities. Rising interest rates could force deeper cuts or higher taxes, affecting everyday life even more. But with discipline, transparency, and strategic investments, it's possible to reduce the risk of a fiscal crisis while still supporting public services. The path isn't easy, but it's navigable. Policies like targeting debt reduction during periods of economic growth, investing in projects that generate long-term returns, and maintaining a sustainable borrowing level could make a huge difference. Ultimately, the takeaway is clear. National finance is not abstract. It directly affects your daily life. The invisible bill is real, and it matters. Being informed, curious, and aware of how government spending works equips us to understand the challenges and advocate for solutions. Ask yourself, how should the UK manage this debt challenge? How do we, as citizens, shape the conversation and influence decisions that affect everyone? If this story made you think about where your taxes go and how government spending shapes the country, watch this video on why the UK is facing the highest inflation in the G7 and what it means for your wallet.